doing? This is Black Shy Guy here. Welcome to a brand new video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel yet, and also hit the notification button to get notified on any upcoming new videos. And also make sure you hit the like button if you really enjoyed the video. And as always, I thank you for sitting at my table. We are here to discuss a very, very tragic story about a little girl in Texas that snuck out of her house, and it cost her life. And this is one of the reasons, to me, this year election is important, because it may put a stop to some of these crimes happening when it comes to individuals who are not allowed to be in this country. And obviously there's a lot of other reasons people don't want a certain individual to win the election, but we're not going to dive into that whole pile of minutia right now. We're not going to dive into it. We're going to look into this story. And I'm going to say one thing about a lot of people blaming the parents of this little girl, which is very unfortunate, especially for the simple fact that we cannot even imagine what the parent is going through right now. We can't imagine. You can't put a stop to everything your kids do. You can't put a stop to everything your kids do while you're at work, while you're finally having a night out with friends, because you usually never have a night out with friends because you're always with the kids. The best you can do is to try to be the best parent possible. And hopefully your kid could absorb most of the things and most of the advice that you're providing them with. You can't put a stop to everything. There's going to be some things your kids are going to do. And unfortunately, some kids get the black card. You know what I mean? Some kids don't get the two of spades in the game of spades. Sometimes they are dealt with a worse hand. And sometimes that worse hand involves the loss of their life, unfortunately. And that's very tragic to think of it that way, but it is what it is. I mean, sometimes our kids do some things that are stupid, and we're like, what the hell are you doing? While in another country, another kid did the same mistake, but it cost them their life. Your kid was lucky. He got out unscathed. He or she got out unscathed. But some kids don't get out unscathed. And unfortunately for this little girl, the night that she snuck out cost her life. And for people to jump down the parent's throat and blaming the parent because of the life of that child, or not blaming the murderers, the trash, the piles of shits that took her life, is so confusing to me. Obviously, they're blaming the killers. Obviously, if they're blaming the parents, they're obviously blaming the killers. But how about excluding the parents? Or the parent? Because for some odd reason, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't stand above correction. I constantly say that because I don't. Maybe the father is around, but I didn't see the father in any news coverage or any media. Maybe he just doesn't want to be in the media's eyes. You know, maybe he just doesn't have the strength to take questions right now. Anyway, let's dive into the story and let's take a closer look as to what happened to this little girl who decided to sneak out at night, and the cost of it was her own life.
To wonder what was going through the minds of these two men, and how would you ever think that something like that is something you could get away with?
We're now learning more details in the murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray, whose body was found in a Texas bayou just hours after she snuck out of her home. Investigators now say the suspects, undocumented migrants.
Look at these guys. Look at these pieces of shits. I mean, for you gotta be a different type of animal. You know what I mean? A different type of animal to look at a young face like that and to take her life. And to just take her life. And the way they took her life was so disgusting, to the point that if they do go to jail, I hope inmates take their time with them. There's some crimes that doesn't justify the penalty of death, but there are some crimes that justifies the penalty of the type of death you should receive. And I think the type of death these two people need to get is the type of death that is slow and painful. I mean, the type of death. You ever seen that movie? I believe it's called. It was with Russell Crowe. Was it with Russell Crowe? No, it wasn't with Russell Crowe. It was the guy that played 300, and his family was murdered by two criminals. And the way he caught that criminal and what he did to that criminal was something that needs to happen to these guys. Yeah, it was Law Abiding Citizen. Look up that movie if you haven't watched it. Law Abiding Citizen. That movie is so fantastic for the simple fact that that movie, to me, justified the way that killer acted towards the justice system and what they did for the killers of his family. To me, his actions were justified. Call me crazy if you want to. Go take a look at that movie. That movie was so fantastic. It also involved Jamie Foxx. Let's continue.
Who allegedly sexually assaulted and strangled the preteen were working to flee the country in the days following her murder.
We have gotten into Martinez Rangel's phone and found evidence that he was searching for ways to leave the country.
We're taking a closer look at the timeline leading up to Jocelyn's death and the intense investigation that followed.
And it seems like such a brutal offense.
It was a brutal offense. A brutal offense for no reason, just to satisfy their curiosity of this little girl. There was no reason behind their murder, just to satisfy their lust. That was the only reason for the murder. So for them to try to figure out why the murder happened, there's no logic. There's no logic to it. It was just pure lust and curiosity that sparked their rage towards this little girl. That was it. Those guys need to be taken out back and cut to pieces.
It's just a very, very heartbreaking type of case.
The case begins on Sunday, June 16th in Houston, Texas. At about 10 o'clock that night, 12-year-old Jocelyn and her 5-year-old brother went to bed. But about 2 hours later, around midnight, Jocelyn snuck out. Her body was found 6 hours after that in a shallow creek. Criminal defense attorney Mike Korbanek says the facts of this case are shocking.
It's such a horrific type of case if everything that proves that this is what occurred. The very fact that, you know, it's a 12-year-old girl who's...
I mean, look at that. I mean, how are you a grown-ass man and you don't see that that's a freaking little girl that you're about to annihilate? Like, how you don't see that?
Snuck out of her house and is met in a store by two people who are on release for being illegally in this country.
Released.
And they're on release.
After Jocelyn's body was recovered, Houston officials retraced her steps and put together a timeline leading up to her murder. After she snuck out, Jocelyn was seen in the early morning hours of Monday, June 17th at a 7-Eleven convenience store with two men. Jocelyn's mother told investigators she did not recognize the men and believes Jocelyn didn't know them either.
I had such a bright future ahead of her.
This is the parent that everybody's blaming. Everybody's blaming the parent. Obviously, there's a lot of individuals who are not blaming the parent because they have sympathy. They have remorse for everything that's transpired. But there are individuals, like we all know, the internet, who's blaming the parent. It's because of you. I don't know how you didn't keep an eye on your kids. I mean, if you put your kids to bed, you expect them to be in bed. So you're telling me she's going to have to create a freaking tower outside her home so she can stand in the tower and take watch? You expect your kids to stay in bed. So I don't understand why people are trying to blame her.
And I knew she was going to go very far. And, you know, these monsters took that opportunity
Monsters
from her.
are worse than that.
Texas officials say the men were first caught on security cam at a restaurant.
Take notice, right? This is after they committed the murder. This picture right here is after they committed the murder. Look how nonchalant. And I know I'm looking too much into detail on just a simple picture. But to me, it's like they're walking like it's another day after committing a brutal act on a 12-year-old girl. They're walking like it's another day. I swear, man. I swear. Some countries need to neglect some parts of the law when it involves criminals who basically, without a shadow of a doubt, committed the crime. if they were brutalized freaking death penalties, they would not be doing shit like this. I'm just calling it what it is. And if you have a problem with that, then maybe you have thoughts of committing murders like this. But I think some death penalties should involve a brutal death. And people will think twice before doing things like this. Maybe people are crazy and they will still do it, but a lot of them will think twice.
At the time, they were seen without Jocelyn.
We have found and learned that the suspects began their evening at a Northborough area restaurant together. They left that restaurant on foot, southbound. The suspects continued south and were first seen on a camera.
But the next time they were caught on camera, Jocelyn was with them.
Suspects seen meeting the victim and talking for a few minutes while they were on Kirkendall. Later, the suspects and the victim walked together to a convenience store.
And I think the question on everyone's mind right now is why? Why did this happen? What would be the motive? This 12-year-old girl who's just going to 7-Eleven and then she ends up murdered. So how important is it for investigators to zero in on why this might have happened?
Let me answer that before they give their take. It's not important. It's not important. The point is they committed the crime. People just do things, like I said, out of curiosity and lust. Just to be blunt, just to be honest, they seen a vulnerable young woman by herself and they took the opportunity to achieve something obviously will cause her life, and that was sexual pleasure.
Well, it's extremely important because number one is they're going to want to find out what exactly was the relationship here. Was it? I mean, right now they're assuming it was not connected in any way. They randomly met in this store, but
Yeah,
I think there has to be a little more investigation.
I stand corrected.
And you just have to wonder what was going through the minds of these two men if they in fact performed these actions that caused her murder, as to why they did it. And how would you ever think that something like that is something you could get away with? And
so he's behind her, just marinating on doing whatever he's gonna do to her. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are monsters.
It's also interesting because these gentlemen were about 10 years older than her. So it's not like it was something where it happened with a bunch of friends. Maybe they got drunk, high, or whatever, and lost control of themselves. And it's going to be very interesting to see if they did any tests on the alleged defendants in this matter, who my understanding is now are being held incarcerated pending this case, especially since they were on release from immigration, as I understand, when this occurred. And you've got to wonder what they were thinking if they were here and on release, that something like this could be something you get away with.
During her trip to 7-Eleven, Jocelyn was on the phone with her 13-year-old boyfriend. He told police he overheard her speaking with the two men. Investigators are now revealing what the young boy may have overheard. These two men allegedly went up to this 12-year-old girl and asked her for directions. And in my mind, this jumps right back to when I was a kid, when they said stranger danger, if an adult you don't know reaches out about directions, turn the other way.
And it seems like they followed her. Was she showing them the way or something? And I'm gonna say this, and I'm not trying to blame the boyfriend. I'm not, for no reason am I blaming the boyfriend. But you know how we men are. You know how we men are. If I hear my girl talking to a dude on the other line, and the dude asks us for directions, the way how protective I am, I would have been like, "Who that? Like, what is he asking? He's asking where to go or whatever. All right, tell him how to get there, and that's it. But watch yourself." You know what I mean? You don't need to take him somewhere. You don't need to say, hey, follow me. Let me show you the place or whatever. Tell him the directions and let him be on his way. If he's not on his way, let me know. If he's not on his way, let me know and go back in the store. That's how protective I am. I believe a lot of people are like that, but I'm so protective. My daughter will tell you. I'm like, I do not play around. And even my daughter's mom says, you're like a cop. I'm like, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. I'm like a cop. I do not play around with the safety of the one I'm with the safety of my daughter, with the safety of my nieces. I don't play around. I don't not play around. Do I have a license to carry? Absolutely. I do not play around when it comes to the safety of my babies. I don't play around. So this right here, once they started following her, I'm not sure if she's showing them the supposed direction they want to go to, but it's really suspect.
Hey, so it's almost like these are stereotypical things that these two alleged suspects here are doing in order to get this little girl, lure her away from the 7-Eleven and away from all the security cameras in order to murder her. What do you make of all of that?
Well, that very well could be. And also the fact is that you have to wonder if they realized she was a 12-year-old child and that this 12-year-old child had no supervision when she was at the store.
Doesn't matter. I'm sure he's not trying to say anything redundant. I'm sure he's not trying to say anything offensive about that. But it doesn't matter if she was not 12 years old or whatever. Could be a woman of 25 years old. How many 25-year-old ladies you see that they look so young? They look so damn young. They look like they could be 17. But they look so fragile, so defenseless that they for a lot of people, for a lot of predators out there, that's an opportunity. You know, and I'm always going to try to keep my videos at least 15 minutes below time. So we're approaching that time. You can look into this story, make judgments for yourself and what could be done to better the neighborhoods here in the United States. I think it's to stop all of these illegals from coming in. You don't know who you're allowing in the States, and that's why I can't wait for the elections to take place in November and for us to start taking control of our borders. Because a lot of these murders, when it comes to the border, is happening periodically now. It's happening at a constant basis, and it's getting really, really out of hand. Let me know what you think. The result of what happened to that little girl, I don't even want to get into detail with that because it's really horrific. I don't even want to tell you in the condition they found her in. I don't want to be the one to tell you that. Make sure you look into the story yourself because it's very horrific. I don't even want to hear it again. Just make sure you look into the story of yourself if you're interested. Let me know what you think about the whole scenario when it involves illegals coming into this country. This is Black Shy Guy, and as always, thank you for sitting at my table. I'm out of here. Peace.
Arch criminal who must be put away. Another innocent victim of homicidal maniac.